Okie dokie. So we are on our next one, which is going to be realism. Okay. So realism in Northern European art. So you can see right there in this picture, it says Northern European artists eagerly pursued realism in their art. The new technique of oil painting allowed them to produce strong colors and hard surface on a hard surface, and a hard surface that could survive the centuries. They also used oils to achieve depth and create realistic details. Artists placed a new emphasis on nature, recording in their art what they actually saw. Landscapes became a major theme, not just a backdrop to human activity. So you can see right here, um, this is kind of a picture of realism. Okay, it looks like a realistic thing. This it's not realism because there looks like there's like aliens and stuff in there. I don't really know what it is. I guess I just got a random picture off the internet. But what the reason I got it is because of all the detail on the landscapes. All right. So don't worry about these weird alien looking things here. But if you look at like the background of the landscapes, you got the depth, right? This is not from obviously the Northern Renaissance times, but it's a good example of what realism looks like. Okay. All right. So moving on now. Erasmus helped spread the Renaissance humanism to a wider public. He called for a translation of the Bible into the vernacular, which we just talked about. He scorned those who didn't want Holy Scriptures to be read in translation by the unlearned, as if the chief strength of the Christian religion lay in the people's ignorance of it. To Erasmus, an individual's chief duties were to be open-minded and to show goodwill towards others. As a priest, he was disturbed by the corruption of the church and called for reform. All right, so this is going to kind of leap partially into the religious revolution that we're going to see probably talk about next week. Sir Thomas More's ideal society. So this is Sir Thomas More up here. Great guy, great guy. All right. Erasmus' friend, the English humanist Sir Thomas More, also pressed for social reform. In Utopia, it's a book he wrote, More describes an ideal society in which men and women live in peace and harmony. So it sounds good, right? Men and women live in peace and harmony. No one is idle. No one is idle. All are educated, and justice is used to end crime rather to eliminate the criminal. Today, the word utopian has come to describe any ideal society, often with the implication that such a society is ultimately impractical. So, this is the only question that I will kind of pose to you as one of the questions that you're going to have to answer. Utopia. Do you think that's a realistic thing that could happen? I mean, obviously, it sounds like it would be pretty cool, right? Everybody living in peace and harmony. But do you think it's realistic? Do you think it's practical that this could be it's basically saying like a perfect society. All right. So that's something to think about. And we're going to head to the next one. All right. So we are going to talk about Rabelais, sorry, and one of our favorites. I know you know this guy, good old Billy Shakespeare. Okay. So Rabelais' comic masterpiece. The French humanist Francois Rabelais had a varied career as a monk, physician, Greek scholar, and author. So the guy did a lot of things. So monk, a physician, a Greek scholar, and an author. In Gargantua and Pantagruel, he chronicles the adventures of two gentle giants. On the surface, the novel is a comic tale of travel and war, but Rabelais used his characters to offer more opinions on religion and education and other serious subjects. Like More and Erasmus, Rabelais was deeply religious and had doubts about the organized church. Okay, so this is kind of like if you guys know what like an allegory is, one of your literary elements, kind of like a commentary on something else, all right, commentary on something in society, but doesn't maybe look like that from from the cover of it. That's kind of where Rabelais was doing. He was like maybe making these comics, but it was really a commentary on some serious things, like how he didn't think that religion and education were all that good or were doing everything they could to help all the people. Okay. And again, this guy is yet another guy who was religious but had doubts about organized church. Wow, that's a terrible underline. Okay. So let's talk about Shakespeare. Okay. Shakespeare writes for all time. The towering figure of the Renaissance literature was English poet and playwright William Shakespeare. Between 1590 and 1613, he wrote 37 plays that are still performed around the world. Fellow playwright and poet Ben Jonson correctly predicted at the time that Shakespeare was not a fan of age, but for all time. So this just means basically that he could stand the test of time, right? Like he's going to be around for a long time, and you know what, he was right because he is. So let's go to the next slide, which I believe is our last slide. All right. So you may have learned about Shakespeare's global theater in English class, but this we're going to talk about a little more. Okay. In this play, As You Like It, William Shakespeare wrote that all the world's a stage. When it came to showcasing his own work, however, the playwright chose the Globe theaters. In 1599, when the English people were increasingly eager for plays and other sorts of entertainment, Shakespeare and his company of actors built the Globe on the south bank of London's Thames River. The three-story open-air theater could seat 3,000 people and had a stage more than 40 feet wide. Shakespeare wrote many of his plays, including Hamlet, Macbeth, and Othello, specifically to be performed at the Globe Theater. 20 of Shakespeare's plays were performed there during his lifetime. During a performance of his play Henry VIII, or Henry VII, in 1613, onstage cannon fire ignited the theater's thatched roof and destroyed the building. So that was just kind of a little background on his theater. Here's a picture of people actually still performing Shakespeare today. I know a lot of you have read Romeo and Juliet. Here's kind of a picture of what it would look like. It's almost like an amphitheater. Okay. So in 1997 they reconstructed the Globe Theater. So just think about some of the things that could be good or bad about having an open theater. I mean, obviously they didn't have a lot of safety precautions with the cannons going fired off and everything. But think about like these things: sun and rain. It could be hot, could be rainy, it could be nice out, could be windy. Things like that. So those are things to think about. Was the Globe Theater something that was good or bad, or what do you think? All right. So that's gonna be finishing up the reading there. If you have any questions, make sure you message me or Miss Calabrese or Mr. Smith on Schoology, or you can email us. And if you need any help with anything coming up the next week, just remember Miss Calabrese and I are available on Mondays and Fridays from 11 to 12. I am available for extra help from 12 to 1 on Tuesday. All right. And I don't know about Mr. Smith. Okay. So I hope everybody is staying safe.